The Nike Vomero 18 versus the Asics Novablast 5. Two trainers that actually do share quite a bit of overlap. How do you choose which one is right for you? Before I jump in, I think the first question a lot of people are thinking is, why aren't I comparing this shoe, the Nike Vomero 18, to this shoe, the Asics Nimbus 27? Well, the simple answer to that is, I just don't think the Nimbus 27 is a very good shoe. It's a hard case to make when this shoe, the Novablast 5, exists. This shoe has a better geometry, it's lighter, it's more nimble, it's more versatile, and the biggest thing is there's a better foam in this shoe. FF Blast Max is a much better foam than FF Blast Plus Eco, which is what's in the Nimbus 27. So as long as this shoe exists, I just can't make a compelling case for the Nimbus 27 for running. And with that out of the way, let's start with the specs. Now, from a spec standpoint, these two shoes are actually a lot more similar than you would think. The biggest difference you're going to feel is in the weight. The Vomero 18 is considerably heavier than the Novablast 5. Also, the drop in the Vomero 18 is 10 mil, and you feel 10 mil. You really do feel up on your toes, whereas the drop in the Novablast 5 is 8 mil. Feels like a real 8 mil, but you never feel as aggressively up on your toes as you do in the Vomero 18. It's very much a Nike feel versus a Asics feel. The other difference here would be the geometry. The Vomero 18 has what I would call a mild heel-to-toe rocker, whereas the Novablast 5 has a moderate forefoot rocker and a mild heel bevel. That forefoot rocker is actually a lot more present because of both the geometry and the trampoline effect in the Novablast 5. So you do feel a ride profile in the Novablast 5 that's more springy, whereas the Vomero 18 is much more plush. And moving to the outsole and contact patch of these two shoes, this is where you can actually see quite a bit of similarities. Both these shoes are actually quite wide. The Novablast 5 product photography is shot at a little bit of a strange angle, so this photo is a little deceptive, but these are both very wide platforms underfoot. The Vomero is wider in the forefoot, but just slightly. The waist in both these shoes is the same, and the heel in the Vomero 18 is considerably wider than the Novablast 5, and you do feel that difference. And what's really interesting here is the Vomero 18 has a very Asics Blast series type outsole where you have these rails of one material and then you have this other material in the forefoot of the shoe. I'm not going to say that the Vomero 18 has a trampoline effect like the Novablast 5. That's a hallmark of the Novablast, that kind of springiness and poppiness you get from that trampoline effect. But there is a secondary outsole material on the Vomero 18, and you do notice that underfoot, both from a grip standpoint, but also there's something more substantial there, and on toe off, you do feel like there is another material that's giving you just a tiny bit of pop. It's actually quite interesting. From a outsole standpoint, I actually think both these outsoles work surprisingly well. I've been very happy with the Novablast 5 outsole. I've had very good grip, very good durability with that, and the same can be said for the Vomero 18. Both of these are actually quite impressive outsoles for all-around daily trainers that are more focused on long runs and easy running. Starting with the uppers of these two shoes, they are both an engineered mesh upper, though they have very different approaches. On the Vomero 18, this is a very plush, very training fit, very padded upper, especially in the tongue and around the ankle collar. It is focused on comfort. Nike wants you to be able to put your foot into this shoe and just feel comfort, and that's really what you got here. Whereas in the Novablast 5, this is still a very comfortable upper, but a lot of the padding that you find in the Vomero 18 is kind of stripped down. The tongue in this shoe is much more minimal, but it still does a good job of protecting. There is a lot of padding around the ankle collar and Achilles flare in this shoe, but that's a classic Novablast thing anyway. Both of these shoes have very compliant uppers. I would say from a width standpoint, they fit very similar, though there is a wide version of the Novablast. I don't believe there's a wide version of the Vomero. The Novablast is also a little bit longer, so there's a little bit more room in the toe box of this shoe for your toes. But otherwise, from a lockdown standpoint, they're both training fits. They both hold the foot in. They both have very simple eyelet chains that do a decent job of holding the foot down. There's a big, deep pocket in both the Achilles and heel areas of these shoes, so heel lift should not be an issue. You also have an extra eyelet in the top of the eyelet chain, so you can do a runner's knot if you need that extra heel hold down. Overall, very good training uppers, very good training fit, and they both do a very good job for what you would expect from a daily trainer. Moving to sizing and fit of these two shoes, as I described, these are training fits. I went true to size in both of these. These are both US men's size 9, which is what I wear in pretty much every shoe. For the Vomero 18, this is an exact and kind of perfect Nike fit in my true to size. I would not go up or down at all in this shoe. I would start with true to size. Whereas in the Novablast 5, I'm going to say that it's just maybe a half size long. This is a longer shoe, though as you can see, they're both pretty big shoes. There's just a little bit more length in this shoe. So if you just want a little bit tighter of a fit, especially in the toe box, maybe think about going down half a size in this shoe. But I think my recommendation for both of these would definitely be true to size for what your normal size is in each one of these brands, respectively. Moving to the midsoles of these two shoes, this is where there is a considerable difference. And I'm going to start with the Vomero 18. Now in this shoe, we actually have two foams. On top, we have Nike's Zoom X foam, and below that, we have Nike's React X foam. However, it's not as simple as just being below the Zoom X foam. Think of the React X foam as sort of a bathtub that contains the Zoom X in this shoe, because the Zoom X core goes down into this darker section that you see. So there's actually more Zoom X foam in this shoe than you would think. What that does in this shoe is it contains the Zoom X. When you're compressing the Zoom X, it feels like it's going down and then it's rebounding back up. So the resiliency of this foam is up. Though this is a trainer, the Zoom X foam in this shoe is tuned for, I think, softness, for the recovery aspects of this shoe. This is not a shoe that's tuned for resilience and energy return. It's not necessarily a performance shoe. So the Zoom X in this foam is compressing, it's helping your leg and foot absorb the impact, and then it's just a little bit giving you a pop off the toe. The React X foam, which to me is a very absorbent material, is also absorbing a lot of the impact. So what you end up with in this shoe from a midsole standpoint is just a very absorbent, very cushioned, what I would call plush ride. And you really notice that. The Vomero is a shoe that's really focused on volume running, long distance running. However, I think with this update, Nike has made this a very viable daily trainer for a lot of runners, especially a bigger, heavier, stronger runner. I think this may be their daily trainer if they ever found that the Pegasus was just too little shoe, too close to the ground. This now is a very valid option. And moving to the Novablast 5, one of the big changes and updates in this model is this new foam, FF Blast Max. I have never been the biggest fan of FF Blast Plus foam. I've always found it very inconsistent, but I've been very impressed with this foam. It gives me the best qualities of FF Blast Plus without all the other changes that that foam can go through, because that's one of the most changeable foams I think I've ever run in. But when people talk about a dynamic, sort of poppy, cushioned ride of FF Blast Plus, that's what FF Blast Max is really out of the box. It's been very consistent, very fun, very springy, and very poppy. I think this is a great foam for an all-around daily trainer, and that's really what this shoe is intended to be. Where the Vomero 18 is maybe a little bit more focused on volume running, long runs, this is a shoe that can definitely do that, but this is a little bit more tailored for an all-around type ride. And another way of seeing that ride difference is with my performance matrix. So if we put both shoes on here and we map them across these four areas, this is what you're left with. The Vomero 18, I think, is a shoe that's a little bit more geared towards easy into steady. It will do threshold, and it will go beyond that. I've done half marathon 10K pace in the Vomero 18, and it's been fine. It's not going to be my first choice. It will do it. But I found the real sweet spot, which is the orange or red area of the outline, is really in that steady space. This is a shoe that just wants to tick over the kilometers and just do those long, easy runs. And it does it really, really well. Moving into steady when you need to feels great. Moving to threshold when you need to feels great as well. Now, as I said, for a larger runner, a heavier runner, I think the Vomero 18 would be a really good option that would go into that max effort area. This would feel like a trainer for that type of runner, but for me, I just think it's a little bit too much shoe. Whereas with the Novablast 5, as you can see, I think it has a little bit more legs into that max effort range. And I think that's a combination of the slightly more aggressive forefoot geometry, the trampoline effect in the shoe, and the FF Blast Max foam. I think it's got a little bit more pop, a little bit more spring to it. It's not a shoe that I'm going to pick as a max effort or interval / rep type shoe, but if I have to do them, and I did a lot of them in my 50-mile review, I did some track workouts in the Novablast 5, it's actually quite effective. It works quite well. I was very surprised. But again, the sweet spot of the Novablast 5 really is in that steady range. I think that's where it just wants to stay, do those easy runs, go into steady, maybe begin to push into threshold, and just really do the bulk of your running. If you're running by that 80-20 rule of 80% of your running per week is easy running, both these shoes are excellent for that. And for that extra 20%, these shoes will do that, but you probably have a dedicated speed shoe, so this is a great complement to that. So what's the verdict here? Well, the verdict really depends on what you're trying to do. If you want one shoe to kind of do everything and do everything basically pretty well, I think it's hard to beat the Asics Novablast 5. I think this is probably the best cushioned daily trainer that's on the market. I think this is the baseline that all other cushioned daily trainers are matched to. This is a shoe that will do easy running, it'll do the steady into threshold, but you can do a workout every once in a while in this shoe. Again, it's not going to be your first choice, but it will do it very, very well. However, if I'm looking for a shoe for a long run, a dedicated sort of volume trainer that I'm going to do, again, those 80% of my running, that easy running, I'm going to go with the Vomero 18. This is the shoe that I want because I respond very well to the foams in this shoe. The Zoom X foam and the React X foam really save my legs, leg savingness. So I recover much better in this shoe. And this shoe just feels like a much more protective, absorbent shoe for all of those long miles. If I am building base and I'm building volume in a base period, this is the shoe that I want. If I'm going into a training build for, say, a half marathon or full marathon, this is that shoe that I want in that build to do that, bulk of the running, the 80% of the easy running, so that I can make sure that I'm recovered and fresh for the workouts, because the workouts are really what's important. That's where you're building a lot of that fast speed that you're going to need in the race. But this shoe is going to allow you to do the longer runs, the longer miles, in a much more comfortable way that you're going to recover much, much quicker. But I don't think you can go wrong with either one of these shoes. As I just pointed out, I really think it comes down to what you're trying to accomplish. As I said, I do think this is probably the best cushioned daily trainer that's currently on the market. And it really feels like when Nike designed and tuned the Vomero 18, they were tuning it against this shoe. They were trying to make this shoe be as versatile and work as well as the Novablast 5 did. I would say they did a pretty good job. They got pretty close with Nike technologies. It's just this shoe is a little bit more geared towards easy running and longer running, where this shoe's a little bit more geared for all-around running. Again, you can't go wrong with either one of these shoes. Thank you for making it to the end of the video. If you find this content useful, consider subscribing. You'll see more content from me pop up in your feed. If not, drop a like on this video because it helps this channel continue to grow, which I always appreciate. And with that, I'll catch you in the next one.